Alright, so I have Next.js documentation open here, and you can find this link in the description. The first step is to create our application using this npx command. So I'm just going to copy this command here and open my terminal and paste that here. This will prompt us for the name of the project, and I will call this Next blog. Now, to keep this project simple, I will not use TypeScript, so we will just use JS and JSX. We don't need ESLint. We are going to use Tailwind CSS, of course. Do we need a source folder? We can say yes. And we do want to use the app router for routing, of course. We don't need this turbo pack, and we don't need an alias for our routes. So this will install the dependencies, which are React, React DOM, and Next, and then our dev dependencies, which is just Tailwind at this point, and all the necessary packages. Now let's just serve our application and see what we have in a browser. I forgot to cd into my project. Sorry about that. So we want to cd into Next blog, and now we can say npm run dev. So if I go to localhost port 3000, we can see our Next.js application up and running. And now we want to open this in VS Code to see the folder structure. So back to the terminal on a new tab, I'm going to say code space dot, and here is our Next blog application. So starting from the top, we have this .next folder. This is just a folder created for our development environment. And when we run the npm run dev command, that folder is created. And if we delete this, for example, I'm just going to delete this and then go back to the terminal, break this operation and run npm run dev again, back to VS Code, you can see that Next.js folder is created. Then we have our node and then our public folder, which contains all the public assets. Then we have the source folder. Now within the source folder, we have an app folder, and that is the core of our application. And we will get to this in a moment. But after that, we have our gitignore, JSConfig, next config, we have package.json. So this is just a list of our dependencies, and of course our Tailwind config file. So these are just the standard files and folders in a Node application, or even closer to that, a React application. Now let's talk about the app folder, which is the core of our application. You notice we have a page.js and then the layout.js. And if you open page.js or layout, you notice this is just a React component. We are exporting a function and returning some HTML. And in our layout, we have some other code, which we will get into it later. But again, we have a function that is returning some HTML. And then we have the children prop, which is a React prop and signifies a placeholder for all the other elements that would go within these tags. Then, of course, we have our global.css, which includes the Tailwind directives and some other custom classes. We have an icon and a folder for fonts. Now we will clean these up and start by ourselves to learn how these works. And don't worry about all of this code in these documents. We will talk about them in the next video. I just want to give you an overall overview of a Next.js application folder structure. I also want to share with you the extensions that I'm using. The first one is ESLint, which should be installed by default, but if it's not, it's the one from Microsoft. I have material icons just for the icons of my folders. I have npm IntelliSense. This is a really good and useful one, and it helps us with the imports of our modules or functions. We can skip all the PHP ones. We are not going to use them. I'm using Prettier for my code formatter. I have Tailwind CSS IntelliSense that is going to help us with our Tailwind classes. And that's all the extensions that I'm using for the Next.js application. So now let's talk about layouts and pages.